Welcome, folks, to the Minneapolis Open House. We're going to be giving a short presentation, followed by time for questions and answers. Let me introduce Sam O'Connell, who is one of our project leads for the Blue Line Extension, to welcome you here this evening.
Great. Thank you, Sophia. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us. I'm Sam O'Connell. I am serving as the Met Council Project Lead. I also have some colleagues here with me, and they will be introducing themselves, but I do just want to acknowledge not only Sophia that you've met, but also Dan Solar, who will also be presenting tonight. Dan is with Hennepin County and serves as the project lead. So we're very excited that you have joined us. This is something that is being videotaped or recorded, I should say, and will be posted on the project's website for further viewing. So if you have friends or neighbors that unfortunately could not make it tonight, please share the link with them, and we'll put that link in the chat so folks can easily access the slides. So before we get started with some of the exciting information that Sophia and Dan will be sharing with us, we'll just want to provide a little bit of background on where we are on the Blue Line Extension and share with you a little bit of what's been happening over this last year. So if we could go ahead and move to slide 3, we'll share you a little bit of where the Blue Line actually connects and kind of sits within our regional transit system. So in that upper left-hand corner, you'll see a blue line that comes from Brooklyn Park and goes all the way down and kind of connects to the rest of the metro system. Now, the metro system is made up of both light rail, for which the Blue Line extension would be. The existing Blue Line would be extended through downtown Minneapolis into our communities that we're talking about today. So it contains light rail as well as bus rapid transit. And the whole thought about that is that it gets you to where you need to go in a very fast, frequent, reliable way. The exciting piece about the Blue Line extension is when you hop on one of those trains, is you'll be able to connect not only to downtown, but to the airport and ultimately the Mall of America without transferring to another train. It's a single ride. If you do want to transfer to get to St. Paul, then you just hop onto the Green Line and make your way to either downtown St. Paul or the University of Minnesota or points in between. So it's part of a larger system that we see of connecting the region. And this is a very critical part for us, for some of the communities that are looking for a transit investment. To talk a little bit about where we are in the project process, folks might be like, is this the same project that has been in discussions or thought about or designed for many years? Yes, it is the same project. So last year we had to take a little bit of a pause and just identify another way for us to move forward with the project. As folks may remember, part of our original alignment had 8 miles that was co-located with a freight railroad. That co-location of the light rail was on freight railroad right-of-way, so we needed their permission to be on the right-of-way. That was not an agreement that we were able to reach with the freight railroads. So last August, the Met Council and Hennepin County decided to make a little bit of a shift and begin to think about how we can ultimately get this line into operations, but having a little bit more control of it. So last August, we began to talk to community members, basically begin to reach out and say, how can we identify a community-supported route that can move forward and really serve our region and be part of that connected map as we just shared with you. So that's where we are right now. And our hope is that by the end of this year, we will have a community-supported route. And what is a community-supported route? Is that it basically is a route, an alignment with stations that serves the communities we're hoping to serve, that it best meets the project goals, and it's really grounded in the feedback that we're receiving. So it's very important that we stay connected throughout this process. That alignment will go through more extensive environmental review and engineering over the next few years, and then ultimately, it is our hope and wish that it is in a project that receives also federal participation to move forward. with a goal of opening hopefully as early as 2028. Now that's again with everything kind of moving forward and sort of no bumps in the road, if you will. So just wanted to share that with everybody, but tonight is a really great night because we have heard from community members about where potential station locations could be in some of the communities that we're looking to serve. So I'm going to hand this off to my colleague, Sophia Guinness, and she will walk us through that. Welcome, Sophia.
Thanks, Sam. And for everybody that's has joined us since we kind of began, feel free to put questions in chat as we go. We might be able to get to them as we're going along, and definitely at the end we'll have time for any questions that folks want to ask. So with that, right now we are seeking their initial feedback on potential station study areas. That is a process that gets to be refined as we work towards releasing a draft route report later this year. And we really want to acknowledge that we'll need a lot of ongoing discussions with folks as we kind of refine and specifically place these stations. We had the previous alignment with with our stations, but we have these new areas, especially in the Minneapolis community with West Broadway and Lowry being potential new routes under evaluation. We had to kind of re-look at where we want stations and how to best serve major destinations in the public. So some of the things that we kind of took into consideration as we developed these station study areas were kind of previous planned stations where we were able to serve similar places. Kind of stakeholder and community input. We asked a lot about major destinations, where people were going, what were major community assets, and thought we'll put that in our part of our consideration, hence the key destinations. Also kind of how our transit network works now and kind of into the future, overall spacing of our stations, and looking at potential number of stations. So that piece hasn't been fully determined, and that'll be part of our process of station evaluations. So in the Minneapolis region, getting to the map specifically, if we're taking the Lowry Route, kind of coming, or taking the Lowry Route from Target Field, we have a station kind of in the North Loop area, one placed close to West Broadway, one kind of by where the Upper Harbor project would be, and then kind of in the business nodes where by Emerson, Fremont, and Penn. Also note that we have a station kind of in the Robbinsdale area that would also help serve the Minneapolis kind of network at North Memorial Hospital. Along West Broadway, again, we have stations, study areas in the Penn area and the Emerson Fremont area. You can kind of see there's some of them are kind of smaller bubbles and some of them are more elongated bubbles. And that's the overall whole space where we might put a station. We need about 300 feet for a station platform itself. And so these are kind of multiple blocks where we might be able to place a station and seeking feedback on kind of some of that exact placement as we kind of go through the process. And then something at kind of as we go through the links, potentially in that Plymouth area. And if you're traveling to West Broadway, there's kind of multiple configurations that you could get there. And so kind of having on some of the ways, whether you're going the orange to the red or some version of the orange to the pink or the blue or the green to the blue, having a couple stations placed along that way. So how will we kind of evaluate these going forward? We have a set of project principles on our website that speak to a whole bunch of different things about like serving people, improving transit, but also avoiding property acquisition, continued public engagement, kind of engineering requirements. What works the best purely physically, and what is best serving our destinations and major destinations and employment centers and things like that. The available right-of-way is related to kind of the engineering requirements and kind of how that all fits in. And of course, our existing land uses. What best supports a station the most in an area. So things that we would like to hear from you. Are we missing locations, major locations that people want to go? Do these feel right for today and tomorrow? Any specific considerations we should be taking as we specifically place the stations, and honoring community assets along the way. that's just kind of a little bit of an overview of our stations in Minneapolis. If you're looking for kind of the overall project route, we do have more information on our website and can answer more questions on that. So with that, I'm going to turn the presentation over to my colleague, Dan Solar, who is going to walk through some of how LRT could fit on this various corridors and some of the kind of options that we've looked at, center, elevated, side running, all that kind of stuff. So with that, Dan, take it away.
Thanks, Sophia, and welcome anyone here tonight to hear our presentation. One of the things that we undertook as we started to look at these route options on Lowry or West Broadway was how would LRT fit? How we kind of know how wide the rail guideway is, and so knowing the right-of-way widths and the existing roadway widths and the uses of Lowry and West Broadway today, we wanted to do some visualizations that would be the first cut understanding and ability to take a look at just how LRT would fit on those roadways. So those are the two general characteristics, Lowry and West Broadway. We've got these links that Sophia kind of showed on her map, and we've got some analysis to do on those as well. We know that we can't and we don't simply have room to just widen out Lowry or widen out West Broadway, plop LRT down in the middle, and keep all of the existing uses that are there today. And so both of those roadways provide space for travel, north and south, east and west along the roadways. Those roadways provide areas for left turns to make turns onto side streets. They have traffic signals at various intersections along the route. There's parking along the side. There are sidewalks along the side. In some cases, the sidewalks are decent. In some cases, they're a little bit narrow. There's boulevard areas, streetscaping. There's bike routes along here. So there's a lot of things that make up the existing condition. And as I said, based on the actual width of the right-of-way and the current state of buildings adjacent to the roadway, we can't just widen and drop down in to here LRT. So we've come up with a first kind of a look at how it might fit, what could stay, and what might have to leave along these designs. Go ahead and go forward, Sophia. So we're going to start up on Lowry. This is Lowry kind of over on the western end, closer to Highway 81. And this is a kind of a cut section where we took an aerial photo of the existing Lowry configuration, and then we turned it into kind of a rendering, a drawing that visualizes what happens today. So you can see along this segment of Lowry, there's the 2 lanes of traffic, 1 lane in each direction. There's a bike lane on either side of the travel lanes, and then there's some boulevards and sidewalks along there. Buildings along this section of Lowry are a little more scattered. They're not absolutely right next to each other. It's a lot of residential properties up in this area. Homes with side yards or front yards set back. So this is the general concept of what it looks like. The next drawing then shows a concept of what it would take to put LRT in the middle. So you can see what we've done here is put LRT down the center. That width is approximately 28 to 30 feet of width in the middle. We keep Lowry still open as a 1-lane roadway in each direction as it is today. But of course, the bike lanes are gone. You can see that in all cases, the bike lanes are gone. We put some sharrows on here, which could be an option to share the through lane with bikes. Other options will be analyzed, like moving bike traffic to adjacent streets and options like that. And then the sidewalk areas become more integral to the curb than they were previously. There aren't really space for green boulevards. So while the properties are maintained, you can see everything moves a little bit closer to the properties. We kind of push the lanes to the outside. the sidewalks and boulevards become integrated together. We've got one lane in each direction. So this is a sample of what it would look like on Lowry. Moving a little further to the east on Lowry, as we get closer to Lyndale, Lowry widens out in that area. It becomes a 4-lane road, 2 lanes in each direction through a good portion of that part of Lowry when we're closer to I-94 and Washington. You can see there are bike lanes as well. In this case, there's bike lanes on the outside of the travel lanes. There's some parking that's out there as well, and there's sidewalks with boulevards on the outside. This is a much wider right-of-way than what is available in terms of overall right-of-way to the west on Lowry, and it has to be because there's a wider road, a 4-lane road in here. There's parking in here. There's the bike lanes along here as well. So again, if we take and there's also a median and a good size median through a lot of that. So what we propose in the after then in this segment would be that we would put LRT in the middle. We would kind of push it out. The parking that would be along there would go away. We would attempt to keep some bike lanes on the outside through at least a portion of this. And that'll be something we really have to work with the community on, because if the bike lane isn't continuous, where would it turn? Where would it go? How would it follow through the city? You can see we've got some medians out there still because we have to have left turn lanes in this case, it would be at Lyndale up in front of us here, or at Emerson Fremont, further to the west along there. We're able to keep 2 lanes, and then 4 lanes, and we're able to keep LRT in the center. So this is a little bit about how Lowry would look on the far west side. So the Lowry Route, as it was identified before, would come east and west from the Robbinsdale, Minneapolis border up by Highway 81, and LRT would, in that route option, would run east-west along Lowry. And then we would make a turn somewhere around the I-94 bridge in that area, and we would turn to Washington Avenue, and LRT would then run north and south along Washington Avenue. So for the great majority of Washington Avenue in this area, the west side of the right-of-way is I-94. So you've got the I-94 freeway, and then you've got either walls or slopes or some kind of a grade separation up to Washington Avenue. So that's what generally the condition is along the west side. Along the east side, it's generally industrial and retail commercial businesses. There is a sidewalk that runs along both sides of Washington Avenue, north and south. It's generally a 4-lane road with parking on the east side in some spots, on the west side in some spots, and left turns where necessary. This rendering that we took, you can go back, Sophia, this spot right here where we were before, this happens to be right about at 18th. And so you can see we've got a left turn lane, we've got 4 lanes of traffic, we've got some parking. So in here, if we were to put LRT in place, as you can see on the next drawing, we would put LRT in the center of Washington Avenue. It will continue to be open as a 2-way roadway on Washington. We would have 2 lanes northbound on the east side of the road. The sidewalk would essentially be in about the same spot. LRT would be out there. We have center running rail, and we'd have a single through lane southbound and maybe parking on the far west side of the right-of-way there as well. Whether or not we need parking in here, whether or not that should stay, that would be something we would work with the community on to decide in each particular situation like this along Washington Avenue. A little easier, though, to place LRT simply because of the extra space. So on this area of Washington Avenue, now we're south of West Broadway, and so I-94 is a little further away. We've got development on both sides. It's essentially a 4-lane undivided roadway with parking on each side. And again, the uses along here are, you can see a parking lot on the east side of this, the right side of this drawing. You can see more industrial buildings. We're looking a little bit at how much parking is utilized here. Would parking need to stay in the end? So in this particular piece, We would put LRT again in the center. We'd put one lane in each direction and possibly keep parking on that side. If there was a feeling that that would be better to have a boulevard area or to have a through lane there instead of parking, we could analyze that as well. From a traffic standpoint, a single lane in each direction is generally adequate for this segment of Washington Avenue through this area. So that's a little bit about how it would look at along Washington. So mostly a 4-lane road. Some of it would be converted. Some of the lanes might be reduced through there in order to fit LRT. So that kind of follows the Lowry Route, which is Lowry and Washington Avenue. This next group of visualizations is going to be along West Broadway. And so our first one is up right near Queen, which is a little closer to the Robbinsdale border, a little bit further up north. This is a segment. There's a good chunk of West Broadway that has this cross section today where a center turn lane is in place for left turn lanes in each direction, 2 lanes in each direction for through traffic. Parking is allowed in here when parking is allowed, since it's a through lane as well. A lot of the parking here is time restricted parking. So no parking for southbound in the AM and no parking for northbound in the PM in the outside lanes. Otherwise, during the day, parking is sometimes allowed. Other than that, throughout times of the day, there's a left turn lane or 2 through lanes in each direction, and there's a left turn lane. Not really many boulevard areas in here. You can see the sidewalk is fairly small. The light poles and other signs and such are in the sidewalk along here in the current condition. So with this section, if we were to put LRT in, again, if we were to put LRT in the center, we would propose to put 2 directional LRT in the center of that roadway. We would convert 2 lanes in each direction to 1 lane in each direction. Parking would not be allowed at any time, and we would try to make the sidewalks and boulevard areas a little wider. And so while we don't have exactly the dimensions worked out, we would try to make the sidewalk and boulevard areas a little wider than they are today in here. So what is gained or what is remains? Traffic is still open 2 directionally along here. The parking, it would be restricted, and we would work on other ways to provide parking, maybe some district parking, maybe cross street parking, maybe some parking lots for businesses along the route would be converted here. And the other part that, of course, goes away is the center left turn lane through here. A lot of that area of the center left turn lane is not used today. There are a fair number of driveways. But wherever there would be, as you look at this section, wherever we would have to place a left turn lane in, that would also require widening that is not there today. So while this reflects a typical section of West Broadway, it doesn't reflect an intersection area where we would have to put in a left turn lane. There would need to be widening. So as we go a little further south along here, this is at Newton. So kind of in the Newton area, the center turn lane converts to a landscaped island out there. This condition isn't too long of a condition along West Broadway, but it's in a number of spots where left turn lanes are available for cross streets, but then the middle has a center landscaped island. Again, 2 lanes in each direction, parking on the outside lanes allowed at specific times of the day, fairly narrow sidewalks right adjacent to the curb out there in today's condition. In the after, very similar to what we showed before. 2 lanes in each direction would become 1. Parking would be restricted at all times of the day along here and need to be provided in other ways. LRT would take up the center, and the sidewalks would get a little bit wider with a little bit more boulevard and sidewalk on either side. Though I don't want to pretend that they're getting tremendously wider, but we would try to add a little bit of space on the outside. Again, what this doesn't show is how we would deal with a left turn lane at a specific intersection. We will not allow left turns from the through lane. That would mean vehicles would be stopped, potentially backing up cars. It also would not allow for a left turn phase with a left turn arrow at any signalized intersections where left turns were made. And that's very important as we talk about crossing the tracks with trains going in both directions. So when we get a little bit further south, southeast along West Broadway, we lose that kind of center turn lane or center median section, and we get more of a section that's 4 lanes in each direction. Sorry, 4-lane roadway with 2 lanes in each direction with just a double yellow line down the center without a median or center turn lane. But in this case, the outside lanes have been converted to parking lanes. And so parking is allowed for most hours of the day, if not all day, on those outside lanes through this area. This is right by Emerson. And so here, 2 lanes each way with that. What we've done here is, again, converted the center into 2-directional LRT, taken the 2 lanes in each direction, made it 1 lane in each direction, eliminated on-street parking from these areas, provided the sidewalks on the outside, but not with a little bit of additional width, but again, not allowing parking and not allowing here on these drawings for left turn lanes. Specific location for those intersections would have to be provided for left turn lanes. So kind of in summary of the West Broadway piece, in general, West Broadway is for the most part a 4-lane road today with 2 lanes north and 2 lanes south, though the northbound lane or the outside lanes do allow parking in them for some hours of the day, making it more like a 2-lane road than a 4-lane road. In all cases, West Broadway would be 2 lanes, no more than 1 lane in each direction with LRT from Lyndale or 94 all the way up to the Robbinsdale border. There's parking allowed in most areas on West Broadway today, some of it all-day parking, some of it restricted time parking. In all cases, on-street parking on West Broadway would go away in the after condition. Those are the 2 primary driving things that happen with no LRT on West Broadway versus LRT on West Broadway. The pieces then that we're really needing to test out is, where do we have left turn lanes? Where do we need to do some widening in order to accommodate left turns? Which intersections are those at? And how do we accommodate those spaces? So that was kind of the general look. In all of the drawings I showed you, in all of them, the designs were center running LRT with traffic on both sides of the guideway. We looked at a couple other options. One was to put the guideway up in the air above the roadway. And so we drew some elevated sections on what elevated LRT would look like. This happens to be on West Broadway. And you can see that while elevated provides a little more space for roadway, it doesn't provide the entire road back. You still have to build piers. You still have to build columns for an elevated section. You can use some of the space under that, but you've got to have reaction distance and space in order to build those columns. Secondly, it expands over most of the roadway, so it really provides kind of a cover over a lot of the roadway and makes kind of the overall viewing and operation and what people can see with regard to adjacent businesses a lot more difficult. It's a fairly significant structure down a roadway that isn't that wide in the first place. It's not like building it down the middle of a freeway or on the side of a freeway. It's really building a fairly significant structure on an arterial roadway in this area. You can see the width of the bridge to carry LRT, and you can see some kind of hatched out areas on the side. That would be how wide it would be in addition to the base width if we were to have a station, for example, up in the air. And then we'd have the challenges not only of having that stationary up in the air, but how would we get people to it? So it is an idea. It's not totally discontinued. We're not getting a lot of energy out of, ooh, this should be elevated as we're presenting this to the public, but it's one of the things we need to keep in our toolbox as an option, if not for all of the corridor, maybe for some spots of West Broadway moving forward. The next slide shows a little bit about what side running might be like. And so there's some advantages to side running in that it allows for both directions of travel to be on one side of the road. So if somebody was stalled, for example, eastbound, they could use the westbound lane to go around them, or vice versa. And it provides that side by side. But one of the big problems with side running LRT on an urban arterial is whatever side it's on, all of the driveways that come out onto the roadway would really have to be closed on the side of the road that has the LRT. Now, where there's a traffic signal, like you see on this drawing, we could keep those intersections open with traffic signalized control, but we'd be closing like 30 some between alleys and driveways and roadways, like 30 some access points on West Broadway. And if we were on the other side, we would be closing again 30 plus access points along the, in this case, the north side of the roadway. And so same with Lowry. Any side running on Lowry, we close many access points along there as well. So we've really kind of taken off the table side running. It really isn't a good option for an urban arterial street running LRT. The ability to control signals and to keep the driveways and at least right in, right out access coming on and off of either Lowry or West Broadway looks to a center running LRT. So we've brought these out and we've started to have discussions about these. We're getting a lot of feedback about the pros, the cons, things people like, things they don't like. And of course, as we gather up that information, we'll continue to refine and address topics like parking and topics like traffic signal control and turning movements and driveway access along these routes to help guide us to what makes sense for the best locally preferred and community supported alternative and option out here. So that's the visualization piece. Sam, are you going to take this piece on community wealth building and anti-displacement?
Yeah, Dan, absolutely. Thanks for that. And I know folks probably have a lot of questions on what Sophia shared and what Dan shared. We just have a couple more slides we just wanted to bring you up to date on and some of our other activities in addition to the technical work that Sophia and Dan shared. Obviously, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat or we'll just sort of take your questions. Sophia can facilitate that here at the end. But as we talk about these projects, we know they're extremely transformative, especially if you look at the existing blue line, the existing green line, or even the green line extension from Eden Prairie to downtown Minneapolis that extends the green line from St. Paul to Minneapolis and continues going out west Eden Prairie. They are transformative. What we want to ensure and what community members and businesses have told us is that, yes, we understand that they transform, but let's make sure that we're also building community wealth. And the transformation is really a product of the really good plans and thoughts and community work that has been done in this corridor to really realize the vision that folks have in terms of local ownership and staying in place and not being impacted by construction or minimize that impact to construction. So just wanted to share with the group tonight that that is something that we've heard. We continue to work on this. Both Dan and I, and as we represent the Met Council in Hennepin County, recognize as well as our policymakers that we need to resource this conversation. We should not be leading this conversation. So what was key to that is forming an anti-displacement working group. But before we do that, we actually need help and support to help us navigate through some of these conversations and really support this work. So there was a request for proposals that was released back right at the beginning of July, and they were due yesterday, actually. So 3 proposals have been received, and so staff and some of the community members, both on our Business Advisory Committee and our Community Advisory Committee, will be getting together tomorrow to review those proposals. And what we're asking is for a facilitator that is very vetted in the issues of anti-displacement and gentrification and community wealth building to help us navigate these conversations at kind of all levels. So we anticipate a working group that not only consists of some of our community members, but really some of the agencies that are responsible for some of the planning and support, and not only these type of projects, but also for housing and development. And that also includes the private sector as well, as they have a role to play. So just wanted to share with folks that in addition to the technical work that is moving on, we're also putting a working group together that can help us tackle some of these issues in a very, very strategic way to make sure that we are addressing the community's issues and protecting the assets, and really builds on the community vision that has been worked on in so many years from some of our communities. So just wanted to share that with you. Sophia, if we can move to the next slide. Just a reminder for folks to stay connected. Our website has really, really good information. So it has the latest and greatest news and maps, and currently a survey too. So you can take a look and show us what you like and what you don't like. You can share that with us as well. And we're sharing with what we're hearing too. Just a reminder, if you haven't, please sign up for our Gov Delivery project updates. It lets you know when there's something new or something happening, keeps you connected to us, and our hope is to be connected with you. As always, please connect with staff. That is a #1 resource for you as well. And Sophia, usually probably see her name and her face at a lot of community events and meetings, and a lot of the information that's being shared. We would also just ask that you follow us on social media. That's also another good way to stay connected with the project. So with that, Sophia, I'll be quiet and hand this back to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Sam. We're now at the question portion of the meeting, and I think the person on the phone might have dropped off, but if anybody is joining us on the phone still, you press *6 to unmute if you want to ask a question. For everybody else that's joining via computer, please feel free now to enter questions in the chat. You can also raise your hand and unmute and ask the question directly. And while folks are thinking about it, just will want to say a couple follow-up things. As project staff, in addition to this meeting, plan to be out in the Minneapolis area a whole bunch. So if you have neighbors that missed today's conversation, not only is it posted on our project website, but if you want to engage with staff directly, we'll be at Flow. We'll be at some of the August events where neighbors are gathering, your national night out type activities. And we also really love some of the small group conversations. So hang out in a community garden, have a conversation. Staff really loves to do that. We've had some of our best conversations in those venues, and so we really encourage it. As Sam mentioned too, we have an interactive map, so you can go into the visualizations and ask, provide direct comment in addition to emailing staff. If you subscribe to the project newsletter, we will have updates on some kind of community-focused design conversations in the fall. As Dan was talking about, we really want to get into some of the options. The visualizations are kind of a first stab at how things look, but we got to get into some of the details, and we're really looking forward to kind of diving in with community and looking at some choices later this fall. So that'll come out on our project newsletter, as well as when we kick off the anti-displacement work. As Sam said, proposals are under review. Hopefully we'll be able to kick off some more in-depth conversations in that September timeframe. So if you want to stay up to date with all of that, that is where you could go. So I see a handful of people that are with us, and we'll kind of give it a minute to see if anybody has any questions. Otherwise, you know where to find us, and we can continue to converse in the coming days and months and weeks as we continue to develop this project. I'm not seeing questions from our folks online. So Dan and Sam, any final comments that you'd like to provide to the group?
Just wanted to say thank you for spending the time with us. We know your time is precious. Especially in the summer months, but please do stay connected. As we receive feedback, there will be further refinement of station locations and LRT alignment options here. So some really good information that needs your attention will be coming out. So we just want to stay connected, and thanks for being with us tonight. So I'll hand this over to Dan.
Well, I mean, I would say the same, Sam. And if people are watching this, if people go online and get a chance to look at this presentation and something just sparks their interest and they have a question, certainly these methods you see on the screen now about how to stay connected with us will put you in touch with our team and with Sophia, and we will get answers to you. We are certainly also able, if anyone has a group or an organization that's interested in having a presentation, we will certainly come out to you and work with you. So we've got, we're making progress. We're moving forward. We're having lots of discussions, and we really look forward to kind of bringing things forward and continue to advance this project in the next short time.
And
yes,
we got
Ricardo, I think
we got
we'll
an invitation in chat. So yes,
Yes,
we're always welcome to come. We're always happy to come and talk with the Blue Line Coalition.
Yes,
whenever
absolutely.
you'd like to
Thanks,
have us.
Ricardo. Good to see you here tonight. And yeah, we can certainly do that. Happy to. And as we continue to work on our anti-displacement work and kind of evaluate our proposals, we'll know more about the direction we're going there as well. So thanks, everyone.
Okay, with that, bye everyone. We'll end the meeting.
Thanks.